Hey, welcome to the Unemployed AF Dad podcast. First episode.
We're doing it.
Yeah. This has been a long time in the making. We've talked about doing a podcast for months and months and months. And at that time, I was employed. And I guess that was my excuse for I don't have enough time to do this sort of thing. Because it is very time consuming. As we've already learned, we haven't even released our first podcast. Already so much work goes into it. Have a new appreciation for those who do this for a living. It'd be great to be in an actual studio, but for the time being, this is good enough.
This is cozy.
Yeah, this took us like an hour to set up. But anyways, my name's Adam. This is my wife, Leslie, and we really appreciate you joining us for this, again, introductory podcast, Unemployed AF Dad. AF does not stand for what you probably think it stands for. If you listen to the trailer, it actually stands for
Alcohol-free.
Alcohol-free, which is a journey that we started together 6-ish months ago, so it's still relatively new. But this is not just a podcast about being alcohol-free. There are plenty of other people out there that are much more qualified than us to talk about this sort of thing. This is a lifestyle self-improvement podcast. We're going to talk about all sorts of things that we just encounter in our daily lives. Anything to add on that?
Well, things that we enjoy too, like things that have, spoke to us or are meaningful to us. And yeah, like definitely our alcohol-free journey has been pivotal to where we are as a married couple, as parents, as just individuals trying to navigate the world. Being alcohol-free has definitely been pivotal.
I know what you were trying to say.
Words are hard.
We're
going to dive into that pretty deep.
Absolutely. Let's kind of do a quick intro. Again, I said my name's Adam. This is my wife, Leslie. We've been married for 12 years. We are parents to 2 beautiful children. We have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, a girl and a boy. And we are just normal, everyday people. We don't have really any expertise in anything that's going to be discussed on this podcast, so we want to put that out there right from the get-go. We are not experts.
Just a chick and a dude putting out our wisdom to the world.
Exactly. But we do have a little bit of life experience, but what we're really trying to do here is build a community. We know that there are people out there that are probably questioning their relationship with alcohol. I think we've talked about this a lot. It's becoming more and more accepted to not drink alcohol.
Well, there's so many more non-alcoholic brands that are coming to light. Even like Katy Perry. Have you seen hers?
No.
Yeah, so she has a non-alcoholic beverage. So even
maybe you're a firework.
Celebrities are, maybe seeing the benefits of being alcohol-free too, but I know you're a big fan of Athletic Brewing Company.
Yes. Plug, we are not affiliated in any way yet with Athletic Brewing Company, but if you are a fan of beer and do not want the alcohol, I do encourage you to try Athletic Brewing Company. We'll put a link in the description on this podcast, but a lot of good flavors, and it tastes exactly like the same, the real beer. It's as close as you can get, but you don't have that alcohol bitter taste, I think.
And I will say, during the beginning of our alcohol-free journey for you, having a supplement was quite important. Having that transition, I think, because we were starting our alcohol-free journey in the summertime, and.
Yes.
What do we all do in the summer, right? Like, we're out in the sun, and we live in the Midwest, so the summer is like a huge deal, right? Because we can be outside more, we can go swimming and all of that stuff. So
let's talk about that a little bit, because alcohol plays such a big role in society.
Yeah.
I mean, so going back to when we decided to stop drinking alcohol, I think it was around April, and within a week of that decision, we had a wedding to go to. And so we go to this wedding, and of course, at the reception, everyone's drinking, has a drink in their hand, and we went to the bar and we got a club soda with a lime. And it was just club soda, nothing in it, no vodka. But holding that with, people all around you drinking, it did kind of feel like you weren't singled out. It was a lot different than just having like a glass of water, because people just assumed that there was probably vodka in there, which is maybe a crazy thing to have to do. Like, we're adults. Why can't we just say we're not drinking? Because people get kind of uncomfortable with that, right?
And what have we learned that why people get so uncomfortable? It's because then they are acknowledged with like, oh, do I have a problem with alcohol?
Right.
What is my relationship with alcohol? I've never thought about it. It shines a light back to them that then makes them uncomfortable. And that's not what we were trying to do. We are trying to just be the best humans we can be in this world, and as a reflection to our children too.
I think that's important to point out. We are not making any judgments on anybody who chooses to drink alcohol.
No.
What we're really trying to do here is just kind of give you our journey to becoming alcohol free, how we've benefited from it. But then it's up to you to make your decision. And going back to making people uncomfortable, I know a lot of times when I would say, oh, I'm not drinking, the first thing somebody would do is defend their drinking. Well, I haven't really been drinking as much as I used to, or I hardly ever drink anymore. And it's like, I don't really care what you do. It's not me saying, hey, you need to stop drinking, although I think there are multiple benefits to not drinking alcohol, which we will, of course, get into. But it really is just say, hey, this is what I do. This is the way I live my life and how it benefits me.
Right.
But again, people get very uncomfortable with that because I think subconsciously people do realize at one point or another that drinking alcohol probably isn't the best for them.
I think the hangover is probably the indication
that was one of the things that did me in. 37, 3 months younger than her, so I'm the youngest. But we're both 37, and as you age, those of you who are in our age group, if you're in your 30s, the hangovers become even worse and worse and worse, and it doesn't take as much. And let's just put this out there: we were drinkers for a long time. I mean, probably, I don't know, off and on for 10 plus years of drinking.
Yeah, like 12 years. I mean,
let's get into our we're going to get into this much more in depth throughout the episodes. And again, this isn't going to be solely alcohol-free content. We're going to touch on a lot of other things, but this plays a huge pivotal part in who we are, because it impacts so many other areas of your life, which you don't know it until you start to really examine it.
But going back, we've been drinking for about 12 years, and it was so odd, and we just had this conversation not too long ago, but we started drinking after we got married.
It's true. People don't really believe me when I tell them that I did not have a drop of alcohol until I was of legal age, until I was 21. And even then, we were dating. We didn't go out and drink. Even through college, I don't remember drinking very often. Neither one of us liked the taste of alcohol. And let's be real, does anybody like the taste of alcohol? It's an acquired. Everybody says it's an acquired taste, and maybe they say that about coffee too, but I think coffee tastes a little bit better.
The effects of coffee are a little bit better too.
But nobody has an alcoholic drink for the first time that I'm aware of and says, this is delicious. So we never really found an alcohol that we liked. So we didn't really drink a lot until we got married and met your friends.
Yes. Well, for me, it was kind of like a perfect storm. I just was going to, we had just gotten married. I decided to go back
September
to school.
25th, 2010.
Well done.
Always remember your anniversaries, folks.
Had just decided to go back to school full time. What else were we doing? Had just got married. It was our first time that we had lived outside of our parents' house.
We were.
There was a sense of freedom.
We didn't move out very early in life. We stayed as long as we possibly could.
If there is such a thing as a late bloomer in anything, it was us.
Let's not. We weren't living with our parents until we were 30, but we were
25.
Well, I was a little bit younger.
24.
Maybe 23. We'll have to check the math on that.
Check the math on it, yeah. Anyways, there was this new, like, found sense of freedom that people probably get whenever they go away to college that we didn't. And we were married, and it would just seem like, wow, I can't believe we have, we have our own space. There was so much free range that we wanted to take advantage of.
And it was almost like the first few times we started going out with our friends and hitting the bars and staying out late and, of course, drinking way too much. It was like, why haven't we been doing this for years? Like, I get now why people in college party, because this is fun, right? But again, you're at a point in your life where you're still very young, very little we both had jobs, but other than that, and we hadn't really started our careers yet. We were working jobs that we really didn't care too much about, in the sense that we didn't think that was going to be a career for us. We didn't have children. There was little responsibility. And also, again, we could handle the hangovers. We could handle staying out until 2, 3 in the morning. Looking back, we used to pregame at somebody's house and not even hit the bars until 10 o'clock. That's unheard of. We're in bed now by 10 o'clock.
I've been asleep for an hour and a half by 10 o'clock.
I'm very cranky if I'm out past 10 o'clock.
I don't like it.
I want to be in my bed. But yeah, we would stay out till 2 in the morning till the bars would close. We would wake up and, not feel the best, but certainly not be down for the count all day long.
Yeah.
And do it all over again the next night, usually. We'd usually go out Friday and Saturday, or at least one of the two. Work our week. But that's the thing, we didn't drink at home. We didn't drink during the week at all, really.
We didn't.
It was really, let's go balls to the wall on the weekend, and then nothing throughout the week. We'd have that build up. I remember waking up for work on Friday mornings and being like, oh yeah, let's go. Like, I don't even mind going to work. We're going out tonight. We're going to get crazy. And that was our life.
Funny too, because through the week, you would go to the gym, I would run, we would do all of these other things. We were,
quote, healthy people from most outsiders looking in.
But so unhealthy.
Well, my diet wasn't the healthiest. We'll get into that. So kind of a transition real quick. Speaking of diet, that kind of leads me, let's talk about our backgrounds, because I am very unqualified to talk about anything really health related, but you at least have that background.
Yeah, I have I'm not a certified health coach, but I've been through health coach training. I'm a Reiki master, occupational therapy assistant.
Most people probably aren't going to know what Reiki is. I didn't know what Reiki was when we started. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah, Reiki is just an Eastern energy healing modality. To keep it brief and simple, there's a spiritual component to it. It's used a lot for emotional healing, to heal those energy blocks. And then once you heal kind of the emotional or energetic body, then being able to heal the physical body, it's much easier.
So to kind of put it in layman's terms, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm a dummy, but that you're talking a lot of times with Reiki, you're talking about past trauma that maybe the person doesn't even realize is still there, but that can affect your health as far as mental health, of course, but even your physical health.
Absolutely. And I think if you just dive into Joe Dispenza, his work, or Bruce Lipton, both of them kind of talk in a more scientific point that kind of melds the physical body with the spiritual or energetic body together, and kind of gives a much better explanation of how that works.
See, I told you, we talk about all sorts of things on this podcast. We're in the very first episode, and we've already touched base on so many things, I feel like. But going back to background, so that's your background, but what do you do as an occupation? What's your job? For those who don't know, I think I already know, but...
I'm a certified occupational therapy assistant, a CODA for short.
Which does not mean that she does physical therapy on your elbow if you hurt it, which so many of her relatives, hey, can you check out my knee? I hurt my knee. That's not the type of therapy you're doing.
No, I work with children, autistic children, and...
mostly nonverbal.
Yeah. And pretty developmentally delayed. children too. So that's pretty rewarding. So shout out to all of my codas out there. If you're driving to work, I see you.
And my background is I'm unemployed, obviously, from the podcast. Very recent for me, but something I unfortunately have experienced now twice in the last year. But my background is in the legal services industry and sales. Pretty much been in legal my whole life. Sales, obviously, is a very can be lucrative industry, but also can be kind of unstable, as I've seen. The last company that let me go just didn't have a place for a lot of us. A lot of us lost our jobs in this recent layoff. But I found this as, I think last time when I lost my job in December 2021. And it was scary because it was the first time I'd ever lost my job. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I had a lot of support from my former company. A lot of people reach out to me. And I've, had some offers already within a week. And I knew kind of I was going to be okay. This time around was a lot different. Didn't really have a lot of people reaching out because the company I worked for, I was remote. And it was based in Texas. We live in the Midwest in Illinois. Only met a handful of my coworkers one time. Didn't really ever feel like I was a part of that company. And so when I got let go, it really didn't feel like I was, being let go. It just felt like, this little test is over and we don't need your services anymore. I was never a part of that. But I was not too worried about it. And you haven't really, there was almost kind of like a piece about it. And like, hey, this really may be the universe saying, it's an opportunity to do some stuff for yourself that you've always wanted to do, and maybe build something to where you don't have to be so dependent on a company to pay your bills. Not saying that I won't go out and get another job, because I don't think that this podcast is going to boom in 1 month and solve all our financial needs for the rest of our life. I'm not that delusional. But again, it's an opportunity to start to build something, and it does take a lot of work, as we talked about earlier. This is not easy to do all this, put all this together, run social media accounts, something I don't really have a lot of experience with. So again, shout out to all those out there that do this. You guys are amazing.
You guys seriously are amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it just goes to show you that you never really know until you experience it for yourself. You look at something online and you're like, oh, that's really easy to do. How did that get 1 million plus views? And then you start to try to dive into it yourself and you realize, not that easy, guys. But going back to it, so I was in sales. I was out in the field with clients a lot. And going back to the role alcohol plays in society, especially in the legal field, attorneys are kind of notorious for being heavy drinkers, and through my own personal experience, I can attest to that. That's true, very true. Anytime that you wanted to take a client out, it usually involved like a happy hour or a sporting event, a conference, whatever it was. Always alcohol, always open bars, not just, a few drinks, lots of drinks. I ran up some pretty high bar tabs on my company card, which they weren't so happy with. But lots of
the expectation.
It is the expectation. It's a social lubricant, right? Like, let's think back to all the events that we were talking about earlier. That a wedding, a happy hour, a celebration, like going out to dinner,
a first birthday, going to the zoo. I mean,
we did drink at the zoo when you were pregnant that one time.
I was going to say, I did not drink at the zoo.
But again, all these events, you think back to where you're going, and you see alcohol all the time, and it's just commonplace. It's just accepted. And we've talked about this before. It's almost like back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, when everybody was smoking their cigarettes, and people are smoking at work and smoking wherever. And of course now people still smoke, but it's not as commonly accepted. I think most people realize that it's it's bad for you. And it feels like maybe there's a trend that way with alcohol.
Definitely on the precipice, I feel like, of something different.
Right.
COVID has kind of thrust us into that too. I think COVID maybe when it first began, there was a lot of heavy drinking because I do believe the statistics showed that alcohol sales were
like through the roof. I think
Right.
the first couple weeks of the pandemic, online liquor sales were up like over 200%.
And then, kind of as the pandemic gleaned on, it kind of, I don't know, it was almost like people got more anxious and less wanting to drink. And then it kind of went to a bell curve down of, not
Well, and
alcohol sales going down.
you said, more anxious. I think that's, at least in my experience, that's a lot of people. When they drink too much, you become very anxious. And we're already in a world that, anxiety and depression is through the roof. And so when people drink, that just kind of escalates that anxiety tenfold. I know a lot of times after I had too much to drink, you're very shaky, your heart's racing, and if you're already prone to anxiety, just the smallest little thing can kind of set you off. And, given the fact that you feel like crap when you're hungover, your heart is going to be racing. Is it the hangover? Is it something else? Your mind starts to, wander. But yeah, so I think that drinking is starting to maybe... people are starting to notice that alcohol, the pros and cons, the cons really outweigh the pros.
Yes.
I know when my last job let me go and it was no longer out in the field, drinking with people, I started to kind of examine my relationship with alcohol a little bit more closely. And I wanted to bring this up because I mentioned this in the description, I think on our trailer, but this is a book that I read that really, really helped. It's called This Naked Mind, Control Alcohol. It's by Annie Grace. Not affiliated with her in any way. This is just something that really helped me out. But go check it out. Even if you are at peace with your relationship with alcohol, it's a very simple read, but basically it just kind of makes you reevaluate your thinking about alcohol, your relationship with alcohol, and just slowly over time changing your brain to say, alcohol is needed to have fun. Alcohol makes me a funny person and a likable person, to kind of transitioning to, I don't need alcohol to be who I really am. I don't know why this just popped up into my head, but I remember when we went to the river with some of our friends, and it was maybe a month or two into our alcohol-free journey, and one of our friends asked, Adam, are you going to be drinking? And I said, no, I'm not drinking right now. And she said, I really wish you'd be drinking because it'll be more fun on this trip. And she said it in love, I'm sure, but it really, I thought about that because it kind of mentions this in the book, that, sometimes people may seem to be fun and crazy and outgoing, but it's just the alcohol. That's not who they really are. But also, I don't need alcohol to be a fun person. Like, when you say, hey, you're not going to be drinking, that's kind of a buzzkill. That's offensive, right? Shouldn't most people be offended by that? That's saying, like, your personality is pretty dry with alcohol. You kind of need some to kind of make you more interesting to me. Otherwise, I don't want to hang out with you.
That's pretty big dagger right there in the chest.
Again, I'm sure it wasn't meant like that, but I did kind of at first take it a little offensively, but then she didn't mean it that way.
But that's also a nice maybe moment for you to really reevaluate too, of like, so I have set this expectation with my friends that I am fun whenever I go out and I drink and I provide entertainment. So now I have to teach them, essentially, again, one, who I am, that they can have fun with me without alcohol, and that all will be well with that. It's almost like you're retraining your friends, and it's uncomfortable. And that's your friends, your family, everybody who knew you with this set of beliefs or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was, so a lot of people probably can relate to this. For me personally, I was maybe considered the life of the party at times. I was always down for a good time.
But you would always wander off with people who were not with us.
That's true. So I had this notorious act of just being, here 1 minute, gone the next. So when we would go out with our friends, and then somebody, they find me buying shots for a random person just because I was standing next to them at the urinal. Like, hey, weren't you in the bathroom with me? Let's buy you a shot. Like, just goofiness. But I was known as somebody who was very outgoing, liked to have a good time, and I think when I stopped drinking, and I've been to bars since we stopped drinking. It's not something I necessarily always like to do, because I think you realize when you stop drinking alcohol, some of the things that you used to do, you only did it because you were going there for alcohol. A bar is one of them. I hate to say it, but kind of wedding receptions. I've been to a wedding reception, alcohol free, and it's not that fun. I think you can't have fun. Fun is what you make it. But when all the other people around you are drinking and kind of getting a little belligerent, and the night's wearing on, and you're that designated driver for that belligerent person, it starts to not become so fun. But yeah, you just re-examine the things that you like to do. Like, was I doing that because I truly liked doing that, or was it because there was alcohol there?
Or was it because you were socially programmed?
Right.
Of like this, X, Y, Z, I have to do these things in order to have fun. And society says, if you drink, you'll have fun.
Right. But, going back to being in bars, alcohol free, I think the friends that I would go out with prior to me stopping, my alcohol consumption, had this expectation of what it was like to go out with me. Mm-hmm. And when you go out with me when I'm not drinking, because I'm not maybe more outgoing or more crazy or more off the wall, they think you're not having fun. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, you're not going to have fun tonight. We're not going to party tonight because you're not drinking. And I think it's just crazy to say that you can't have fun without alcohol, but I was one of those people. Yeah. I would razz our friends who didn't drink back in the day when we would go out and say, come on, I probably said some pretty mean things. I'll be honest. People probably didn't like me so much, and I know a lot of people. When you're drinking, you obviously change your attitude and change some of your mannerisms and become, let's be real, obnoxious. And if you're sober and you're around someone who's drinking, you can see as the night progresses that they get a little bit more hard to deal with sometimes, depending on the person. But I know I personally was probably one of those people by the end of the night. Everyone just wanted to get away from me. Unless you were drinking along with me, and then we were having a great time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you do. And then kind of that's like the repercussion of it, right? Like you have to wake up the next morning, and if you remember what you did or said, then you have to call and apologize. Yes. Or make amends or, something like that. And I don't know about you, but man, I hold on to my shame and guilt real hard. Well, I used to. I try not to anymore because I'm a lot more aware of it. But in the past, man, I would wake up the next morning and just be like, I gotta call so-and-so.
What did I say last night?
Yeah, exactly. Or people maybe would text you and tell you, what happened. Do you remember doing this?
Like,
do you remember doing that?
Nope,
and
I don't.
You're just like, man, that's my reputation. I can remember things that I would never in a million years do sober. And I know at my core that that's not me. That I did whenever I was under the influence. And it's embarrassing and it's hard to swallow.
And I do not agree with the saying that a sober man's thoughts are a drunk man's words.
Absolutely not.
Because I know that I've said some things in the past that when I was drinking that I would never have said when I was sober.
Well, what we have found out, and I'm going to get nerdy here for just a second, but that alcohol changes the neurology of our brain. It inhibits the prefrontal cortex, which is where we make all our executive functioning, which is if we decide to say something or we hold back and reserve because it's socially unacceptable, that's that part of the brain. And it shut off.
Doesn't it shrink your brain over time?
It does.
I think
it shrinks that
I don't
part.
have a study to reference, but I know that I've seen that
Yes, it does shrink that part of your brain, but it also, I feel like I've read that it also enlarges your amygdala, and your amygdala is your fight or flight response, and your, like, where you get emotional. So it causes you to get angry faster or sad faster or any of those things.
I think we can all attest to that.
Yeah, like it inhibits truly who you are and turns you into, like, you have to succumb to what alcohol makes of you.
Going back to the book, Andy Grace touches on that because she was a big time corporate, I don't know, executive, I guess. And she would talk about in the book things that she would say and do on happy hours and things with all her employees, and the next day not remember it. And people would, hey, do you remember saying that? No, I don't remember. And meanwhile thinking that she was so witty and so funny and so friendly, and if you're looking at it from the outside in, I'm sure you could see that you were acting like a fool, and one of the things I've told a lot of people, over the course of the last few months when I talk about going alcohol free is I like the fact that I'm now in control 100% of the time. I don't have to ever worry about saying, if I say something I don't mean, it's just because I'm being stupid. It's not, I can't blame anybody else but myself on that. But I like knowing that no matter what I do, I will remember that the next day. Mm-hmm. I don't have to worry about waking up in a fog and trying to piece back the night before, and also just the fact that you wake up and you've already ruined your day, essentially, especially as you get older and your hangovers are worse and worse. You are so unmotivated to do things, and that, again, is why it affects your whole life. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm drinking last night, am I going to want to wake up and put all this together to do this podcast? No. Or am I going to want to even go for a walk? Or
take care of your body physically.
Yeah, take the dog out and play with him.
Be a parent.
Be our parent. Play with our kids. It's a domino effect. Yeah. Just, a few hours of pleasure one night before can pretty much wipe out an entire day. And as you grow older, you just realize it's not worth it.
I mean, if you look at it from an investment standpoint and you say, like, okay, a 3-hour investment, because a lot of people will say alcohol is like, oh, you can cut loose and, this is my time. Like, they'll sell it like that, right? And then your, your return on that.
Your return on the ROI, as they say.
Your ROI is actually a debt.
It's a negative. Yeah.
It's a negative.
Yeah.
And people think that is,
I promised myself I wouldn't talk about cryptocurrency on this podcast.
I apologize to you all.
But it's like investing in Bitcoin early on, and then it goes all the way up to 69, 70,000, whatever it was, and not selling. You just ride it out. It's like you got such a bad return on that investment. I'm still holding out that it's going to go up at some point. That's all I'll say about crypto for now. But you're right. It's a terrible investment.
It is.
And really. I think that's why as people get older, you see less and less older people out drinking late at night. That's why older people day drink, because you got time to take a nap and then eat dinner with old folks, and then you're fine by bedtime. But it's just not, it's not worth it.
No, it's not at all. And I know we kind of already touched on that, but it spiders out to so many different parts of your life. Like, you're not the parent that you want to be, you're not the spouse you want to be, you're not the employee that you want to be, you're not living up to your highest self. Like, I think that was the biggest thing is when I drank is I let myself down.
Right.
And it happened over and over and over, and it became such a habit, and then habits become something that you're just like, this is a part of me, this is what I do. And so not only am I letting myself down because I drank so much that now I'm hungover and I don't feel good, but now I'm letting myself down because I'm not getting up and doing my yoga and meditation. I'm not interacting
You're not
with my
setting
kids.
yourself
I'm
up for
not-
success.
Exactly. It's just one after another. And then you have shame and regret, one after another. Like, I can't tell you how many hangovers I had where I was just so mad at myself. And I'm sure, we we live under the same roof, so it was for us. If we were both hungover, it was a lot of silence, because I think we sat in our own shame and discomfort, and we never wanted to. We just never wanted to bring it to light, because then if we brought it to light, then oh my God, we're not going to drink anymore.
Well, sometimes it was because of the pounding headache. I literally just didn't feel like speaking. Yes. You ever had those days where you just didn't even want to look at your phone? People are texting you and calling you, but you're just like, I can't deal with it. But you're right. There was a lot of shame, especially like the older you get, where the hangovers, at least for me, as you know, would wipe me out for pretty much the whole day. Mm-hmm. And you would sit, and I would sit in our room and be miserable, of course, because physically I felt miserable, but also like I let so many people down, and you just, you wonder, how did I get into this position again? Like, the last, what are a drinker's famous last words? I'm never drinking again. How many times have we, God, if you just get me through this hangover, I promise I will never drink. And literally a week later, when you're feeling fine again, you're like, I'm going to drink. It won't be.
I can control it. It's fine.
But yeah, you definitely let yourself down. You let others around you down. Mm-hmm. And I think it just starts to reflect on you poorly as you age, because you do see other people out there, and you're like, okay, they're the same situation as I am. They're a parent. I don't see them, in bed with hangovers. And what kind of person does that make me? I know I'm a better person than this. I know this isn't a true reflection of who I am, but for some reason, when I drink alcohol, I become this different person. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, I didn't like that person. Even if some of my friends thought he was a fun person to hang out with, they didn't have to be around for the aftermath of that. They could go on their separate ways and live their lives and not know what I was dealing with the next day. And
you have to reside in your head for the next 48 hours.
You get those texts like, how are you feeling? Well, I feel horrible. Like, you were with me. You saw what we drank last night. Mm-hmm. One drink turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into shots. And, binge drinking is defined as what, 4 or 5 drinks in one setting.
Oh wow.
Looking back to our previous days, we could drink 4 or 5 drinks in the first couple hours of going out, and we would stay out for 7-8 hours at a time.
Yikes.
And let's touch base on that real quick, because you read an interesting study from Oxford, and there's a lot of, even I think the CDC or WHO says, moderate drinking or responsible drinking is, 1 drink or less a day for a woman and 2 drinks or less a day for a man. And then there's all these articles out there that will have you thinking, well, actually a glass of wine is good for you.
The benefits of bourbon.
The benefits of the antioxidants in wine. Let's just, say right here that those are all probably backed by liquor companies, or they're just clickbait to, hey, because we don't want to be told that alcohol is bad for us, right? If I see an article pop up that says alcohol will kill you, alcohol will give you cancer, probably not going to want to read that. But if I'm a drinker and I say, oh, hey, drinking a beer after a workout is actually pretty good for you, it's good for your heart, probably going to click on that and read that. But
because it reinforces your perspective,
right? It's what you want to hear.
World, it reinforces of what I'm doing is correct,
right? But that study that you saw puts the kibosh on that.
Yeah, so it was. I was listening to another podcast because I am a podcast junkie.
Her
junkie.
When she comes home from work, usually the first thing she'll say to me is, so I listened to a podcast today, so it's inevitable that we ourselves would start a podcast.
Absolutely. It's my dream. But I have a 40 to 45 minute commute to work. So,
I have a 0-minute commute because I'm unemployed.
what else are you going to do? Like talk radio? No, thank you. There's only so much music you can listen to. So like podcasts and audiobooks, like that's my jam. But anyways, I digress. Back to the Oxford study. I can't remember what it might have been on. It was either the Model Health Show with Sean Stevenson, or the Mark Groves podcast. I believe it was one of those, but I can't be positive.
You guys can look it up.
Yeah, but those two they're amazing. I love them both. But anyways, like Oxford just put out the study in 2022 that said there are zero benefits to alcohol. There is nothing that is beneficial in alcohol, and essentially you're drinking poison. You're poisoning your body, because if you think about it, and like, duh, there's no good effect from alcohol, right? Like you're dehydrated, your blood is pumping so fast to try and get that poison out of your body that you have all these like terrible effects, brain fog and dry mouth, and your gut is just like, what is going on? Like there's just so many terrible things that, should it take an Oxford study to tell us?
It should not.
that alcohol is bad? No, but when a scientist does prove that there's nothing wrong, then there's just some accolade behind it.
Common sense would say something that I put into my body that makes me feel so bad
that I want to die,
or forces me to vomit it back up because it's saving me from poisoning.
That's good.
It probably isn't something that you want to be putting in your body on a consistent basis. But again, we are not here to judge. We're not here to fearmonger. We're not trying to say that you should never drink alcohol again in your life, because that's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying for us, alcohol-free has proven to be much more beneficial than drinking alcohol. And we don't know what the future holds for us. We don't know if we'll never have another drink again. And I think, again, that's the cool thing about this podcast, is we are still relatively early in this journey. 6 months, 7 months may sound like a long time to some people. It certainly did to me. Since we started drinking back in, our mid-20s, this is the longest stretch I've gone without having a drink. I know you've gone longer, obviously, because you've been pregnant twice.
Yes.
So I don't think it's recommended that you drink alcohol during pregnancy.
Yeah, I don't think so. I didn't partake in it.
But you've also had other stretches where you didn't drink.
Yeah, it was a choice, just because I was doing my own healing of trauma and emotional dysregulation and things like that. And so you can't do those things if you're drinking, because alcohol is a numbing agent, right? And so if you're numbing the bad,
less.
If you're numbing the bad, then you can't walk through it, you can't transition through it, and you can't feel the good. You can't. So that was imperative to healing. That's
interesting, and we'll get into this in future episodes, but you and I had very different reasons for drinking alcohol, and I think mine was more, going back to what we talked about previously, I was the life of the party, per se. I wanted to just go out and have a good time. It wasn't that I was trying to hide from anything or numb myself because I didn't want to feel a certain way. That was not the reason that I drank, but you had another reason that you consumed alcohol.
Those were the reasons that I was. I was just so riddled with pain and sadness and loneliness, and to the outside world, I was not experiencing any of those things. I had mastered fake it till you make it.
When you're at the bar and you're going crazy, you got a big smile on your face, you're dancing, everybody,
she's great.
Everybody thinks life is just butterflies.
But even when I was sober, I still had the ability to fake it. I could still put on a smile. I could still make other people feel good. And so, alcohol was a great way to not feel the bad emotions anymore, to not feel the pain or the shame or the loneliness or the sadness or anything. All of those emotions that I had spent so many years, 25, 35 years really suppressing, I didn't have to feel them anymore. And I remember the first time truly going out and getting drunk and just like sitting and just being like, oh my God, this is such relief. This is such a relief to not live inside my head and inside my body for a few hours and to be able to just disconnect and disassociate. Now, 10 years down the road, I realized, like, I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse. And it wasn't doing it. It was doing something in the very short, the short span. I was getting that relief, but I was actually compounding what I was feeling, because now, like, I still had all the baggage from, the many years. And now I had baggage from when I went out and I did things that I didn't want to. And then there's the shame and the guilt. And, like, we're just piling it all back on. It was just making it so much worse.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, because I think some people don't want to deal with the things that are going on in their lives, and their solution is, I'm going to put that off. That's a problem for another day. Tonight, I'm just going to, loosen up, have some drinks, and we'll deal with all the problems tomorrow. I know I've done that, previously with anxiety. I was very anxious, and let me just have a few drinks and I'll feel better. It will calm my nerves. But then the next morning, it's 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And that's the same with people and their problems. Those problems are not going to go away. You going out and drinking is not going to solve any of those problems. But again, it's a temporary quick fix that so many people are looking for.
But also, too, if you don't have the emotional awareness to actually, go head on to those problems that you're fixing, whether it's the emotional dysregulation or the stepping away of that. Like, if you don't have the tools to deal with that, then you just feel so desperate and you want just some relief for the moment. I mean, that's how I justified it to myself. And, like, I didn't even know what I was feeling inside my body. I was so disconnected with my body that I couldn't even tell you that I was feeling that way. All I knew was alcohol made me feel good, and I wanted to keep doing it.
Hey, we're a society of instant gratification, right? I mean, we laugh about this with our kids. Back in the day when we wanted to watch something, we couldn't just click a button, and we had to either hope that it was on TV or we had to have the VHS tape or listening to a song. I remember recording songs off the TV because I wanted, and now you can listen to a song 1,000 times in a row if you want to. But yeah, we're a society that wants things now. We want a quick fix now. We want a solution now.
Pop a pill.
Yeah, pop a pill, have a drink.
Whatever it is.
And I think most people would tell you that over time that makes it worse and generally doesn't solve your problems.
No.
But I think this is probably a good stopping point for this first episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, this is brand new for us. This is uncharted territory, so we certainly appreciate your support. We hope you found some value in this. But again, we want this to be a community. We want to hear from you. So please subscribe. Leave a review, whatever platform that you use to listen to your podcast. We will get into alcohol-free journeys and much, much more on future episodes. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and we hope you guys have a great day.